And we're back with some more base Lovin. And this map here was sent to me by Preet. This is the second map they've sent me. The first one was the base full of allergic dupes with that lovely regolith train going through the steam turbines. I have no idea how much time you spend playing Oxygen Unincluded, but I think you might have me beat. Maybe. Maybe. Um, yeah, so first thing up I want to cover here, though, is just open plan electrolyzer setup. So this is basically your standard issue electrolyzer setup, but the bottom of it is just airflow tiles. So the hydrogen still floats up to the top, it's still extracted that way, but with no gas pumps required, that means you're not using nearly as much power to run one of these. And since these normally are self-powered, as in you use the hydrogen coming off them to power them, this results in an awful lot of excess hydrogen. Now the Wheezeworts up here are providing the cooling in this instance. I don't think there's any cooling loops going around, so this will be a little bit nerfed in the new upcoming patch. But as long as you're willing to maybe feed the Wheezeworts with was it they're going to require phosphorite? Yeah, if you're like willing to feed them with phosphorite or just use 4 times as many, you could still do something similar. I'm going to actually start stealing this idea and seeing if I can't integrate it into my bases because it's a nice way to save a lot of power. Of course, it is a rather nice base to begin with anyway. Look at that, glorious. And they've even started farming shine bugs down here. I don't know why. I've never found a really good use for those. Eh. But there's also a second open plan one down here. But this open plan one is actually designed to feed the Atmos suits and all that. So literally the same setup, but any excess oxygen just basically distributes it naturally and feeds the base. And anytime they need oxygen to go into the Atmos suits, they activate and pull it out. Uh, let's have a quick check here. As far as I can see, there's no, what you call it. There's no filter on this, so I'm not sure if carbon dioxide is going to be sucked up occasionally. It would really depend on what the gas is around the place. Like that chunk there, if that ends up in one of the gas pipes, that could become a problem. But I presume they have some carbon dioxide disposal technique going on down here. But anyway, that's not the only place where this open plan is used. One second. Up here we have the exact same setup, and I'm beginning to actually. First things first, it feels like people are just building bigger and bigger tanks of oxygen and hydrogen. I'm trying to figure out how many rockets. I tried to do some rough math on how many rockets you could launch with the amount of oxygen that's in here. It's something ridiculous. It is. It's just a lot. But what you notice up here, there's actually an open plan sort of electrolyzer setup up here as well. So basically, what's happening is, well, you don't care about the hydrogen in here because that won't freeze because the temperatures for getting liquid oxygen are too low to freeze the hydrogen. And this just basically spits out oxygen. The oxygen gets condensed, and the hydrogen floats up to the top. And if there's too much of it, it gets pumped out and dumped into the next area. Now, I was worried that the water in here might freeze in the pipes. These are only ceramic, but I tested it. This works just fine. The water doesn't freeze in the pipes, and you get a fully pressurized system. That's just a really nice way to save a bunch of power. You're basically saving yourself on the 2 gas pumps going in there. And as well as that, you're only using 1 gas filter because you don't care. You're basically filtering out. The only thing you're filtering out here is oxygen to lead the oxygen in here. And excess hydrogen from the bottom of the map goes in this side to result in that hydrogen tank. Really like the use of that, actually. Very smart way of just, taking care of the problem. Now, there's another little smart thing down here. You notice these drywall sands. Actually, this is perfect timing. You see these drywall backing pieces, and you'll notice that they're not built. You have insufficient resources to build these. There's no sandstone. So either all the sandstone on the map has been used, or it's locked up somewhere where the dupes can't get access to it. But all the build commands were placed while sandstone was still accessible. Then access to the sandstone was lost after the build commands were placed. What this results in happening is the dupes will actually clear these areas. So you notice there that regolith is getting demolished. The reason the dupes are automatically doing this without any dig commands being issued is they're trying to free up that space for building. Of course, there's nothing they're going to be able to build there, but it is a way, see up here as well, same thing, that you can just basically place a bunch of commands and make sure that your dupes will automatically come back and dig out that area. Downside, of course, you can't place anything in this area because there's a building queued, but on the upside, it's just a handy way to automate the digging of a spot. Sandstone is one of the reasons sandstone is used is because it's only available in your starting biome in the current map types. So once you get rid of all the sandstone from your starting biome, you never are accidentally going to run into any more. Yeah, nice little setup. Helps keep the rocket section clean. Just a simple way of taking care of a problem. Now, before we get into power, where were we? Ah, yes, this map is very fossil fuel low, as in very little fossil fuels are being used to power this whole base. In fact, most of the power originally seemed to be coming from the hydrogen because this is just so efficient. Because of the lack of gas pumps, it's way, way, way more power efficient. So there's actually a big stockpile of hydrogen over here and a bunch of hydrogen generators that appear to be providing the bulk of the power for the early game base. Not only that, actually I don't want to show you the power grid just yet, but yeah, this gold volcano is dumping power in. You'll notice here there's actually, this volcano design is replicated on another volcano on the other side. But what happens is the gold comes down here and lands on this door. Actually, one second. This one, this one is a far better example because it's actually active. So the iron basically pours off here, lands on the wolframite door, and then this temperature shift plate basically helps dump the temperature in there. And there's actually a thermal sensor in here, and there's a little bit of gas. The rest of this entire area is vacuum, but there's a bit of gas in here. So all that happens is the oxygen in here gets heated because it's absorbing heat from this, and if the temperature sensor in here, so basically this is where your temperature sensor sits, and if the temperature is above 135, it keeps that door closed. That just means that if it's above 135, it means there's metal sitting there, hot metal. Once it gets below 135, the door will open and the metal will drop. Now, I wonder if they've ever had any problems with a little bit of metal escaping. I mean, if that hit 135 just as the eruption started, this door would open. Actually, how does that... Oh, there's a reset loop. So what happens is if this goes below a certain temperature, this will drop. Then the filter gate will kick in, which is set to 5 seconds, and then it will close again 5 seconds later and stay closed until the temperature goes back up. The memory toggle makes sure it can't go back down again. Nice little setup, like that. But the power from these is also being dumped into the system. The reasoning being you don't really need to cool. If you're living in exosuits outside your base, you don't care if the metal's 100 or 150 degrees. And the moment you pick it up to use it as building material and place it down somewhere, I think the maximum temperature, once you construct a building out of something, its temperature will be reduced to 40 or 45 degrees, something like that. There's minimum and maximum temperatures of materials. So that iron, even if it was freezing cold, like minus 100 degrees, if you built a building out of it, the building would automatically be 20 degrees. If you build it out of material hotter than 45 degrees, it'll always be 40 or 45 degrees, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's basically where a lot of the excess power is coming from. It's over here and over here. That's dumping power into the system. This is a very low on fossil fuels. There's not a lot of oil processing going on here. Now this is a late game addition according to Preet. This one here was just it's a sour gas boiler. So all that's happening is the oil gets dumped in up here. It rolls down these two over these airflow tiles, hits the bottom, and the thermoaquatuner heats it up, flashes it to sour gas. It flows, counterflows all the way back up here, and then gets frozen in this section. Now, without going into a crazy amount of detail, the rough plan is the supercoolant goes through here, and if the temperature gets too cold, the tepidizer kicks in to help warm it up a bit. And then it flows up through here to condense the sour gas. Then it continues its journey and helps cool down the steam turbines up here, and then goes all the way back. Now, there's no real counterflow going on here, as in when you remove the methane, or the methane, whatever you want to call it, out of the area, there's no actual exchange of temperature between it and the incoming sour gas. So this is basically bulk cooling, as in it's brute force. But there is a steam turbines up here to actually bleed some of the heat out of the sour gas as it goes back up. Just helps reduce the energy cost. But this can run, I was advised, up to about 2 kilos. It's set to 1.8. And it just flows in, dumps its natural gas in here. This whole thing, though, is on a separate grid. It was just basically, they'd avoided fossil fuels up to this point and they decided to run this sucker. Very nicely done. So this actually provides the power brick that provides this on its own little separate grid. And just directly above it here, we've got your water decontamination. By that I mean, okay, we got your polluted water in here with its food germs in it, but these doors are opened beneath it. There's basically timers on these, so they only open for set times. And basically they get trapped in there. They can't move anywhere, and any of the water that's trapped in there basically gets turned germ-free. So it's just a rotating through. Actually, no, I don't want to go through this in too much detail. It's rather slow. It takes a bit of time, but it does mean that you can basically just decontaminate all your stuff before it gets to the water sieve, and just make sure you don't end up in any germs inside your dirt, which is a handy addition. Now, yeah, there are excess shovelwables. This whole base is running on a lot of barbecue, like a lot of barbecue. Ooh, and there's quite a bit of pepper bread as well. But yeah, all the pinch pepper nuts are kept down here, and they're actually farmed. Polluted water comes in. The polluted water is actually heated by a tepidizer. Where is it? Here we are. So the polluted water in here is actually heated by a tepidizer, but the polluted water isn't drawn from here. It's actually just, this just acts as a radiator. So the polluted water from this slush geyser goes in here, gets heated up and sent down. Just a nice little touch to water management. Oh, actually, and there's actually a steam rocket still running. Ooh, that cracked. Oh, yeah, I think a rocket launch. Yeah, the big, huge, horrible problem encountered on this map though was, let's see, keep an eye out for niobium. Nope, 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 nope. Still nope. Still nope. Still nope. 60k planets? Nope. Still no niobium. 70k? Oh, so close. Nothing yet. 80k? Oh, there we are. So this is the closest source of niobium on the map. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rings out. The eighth ring has niobium. That's horrifying. That's just really, really bad luck. And there's not even a gas giant. No gas giant and no niobium until the 80k planets. You're pretty much, oh, liquid hydrogen is probably the only way to farm this anyway reasonably, and you can't even get liquid hydrogen. Well, I suppose you could without thermium. Yeah, as long as you got isoresin, I suppose. But yeah, basically no thermium until you can get a cargo ship out to this planet. That's it. That is, oh, that is rough. That is so rough. Now up here we've got a, yeah, this was actually spotlessly clean when I showed up, so I think they did a bit of a spring clean before I got here. But there's a bunch of automatic dispensers here that drop it down, and it all sits down here before being dropped into the shovel farm. Well, shovel ranch. And this is where all the voles are ranched for food, with a little automated evolution chamber right here. And just in case any of them come in with a little bit of regolith inside them, the drill can take care of that problem. Yeah, this is just a normal drowning chamber. So there's actually a clocked sensor I set up here. Actually, tuition duration. Let's turn this up. Nope, that's the wrong one. That one? No. There we go. Doors close, and then the crude oil actually gets pushed up above this level. So any critters on here, well, yeah, they're forced to evolve. This unfortunately will get flooded though, so that's why it has to go up and down. If once this gets flooded, you're in a fair bit of trouble. Let's turn that off for the time being. So let's have a quick check out of the power overlay and see just how clean the power grid is. Okay, that looks a little bit too. Actually, no, there's some wonky wires. You know what? It's good enough. It's good enough that I feel like only mildly bad about my own power grid, but not so good that I feel really bad about my own power grid. That's exactly where I like it. Just that nice sweet point. Sweet point. You've had to throw in some stuff near the end, Preet. Now, one thing to note is this power grid down here. It's sort of a separate power grid. This is just for the sour gas boiler. It's the only thing that runs on fossil fuels. This whole base that Preet basically made their last base with all allergic dupes and fed them bristleberries. This one is no fossil fuels, so lots of hydrogen generation power and lots of solar power and lots of volcanic power. That's how the power is generated for this map, which is kind of insanely impressive when you think about it. Right. Oh, also there's a little jump start system here. You see the way they've got the five little hamster wheels, and that plugs into a transformer that plugs into the main grid, just to help jumpstart the network if there's ever any big problems later on. But this bottom half grid or the downstairs grid is hooked in up here into this set of battery banks, and these set of battery banks are hooked into the solar, but it's all done through transformers. So what I'm meaning here is there's a feed on and a feed off. So this one would be, say, the feed off. If there's more power on this than as in the amount of battery power is greater than 55, or is it 50 or 55? Yeah, if there's more power coming in from the solar than is necessary, this will activate and dump more power onto the downstairs grid. However, if they're actually running low on power on the upstairs, it's one or the other. I can't remember. I'm going to have to double check this. But basically, if this starts to run low on power, the downstairs grid will actually dump power onto it to make sure that the bunker doors can be opened so that the next batch of solar can be harvested. And you can basically use these large power transformers or multiple large power transformers to transfer power between the two grids. It's just a nice way of setting things up. Is it this one? Yes. So if the power here goes below 5%, if there's less than 5% power on the top grid, the one that provides that's hooked into the solar network, it'll start tapping power off the lower grid to actually, open the bunker doors. Now, there's several things on this I'm going to steal. One of them is those open plan electrolyzers. I want to try and steal those. The second one is these using automatic dispensers in space. I've seen a couple of these recently and I quite enjoyed them. Oh, what's the heat like? 45 and 282. Okay, these do generate a little bit of heat, I think. No, not. Yeah, but I think that only happens when they either take on resources or spit them out, one or the other, or maybe both. So it should be pretty easy to cool those down. But yeah, I'm definitely stealing that idea. So big thanks again to Preet for this one. Big commiserations on not finding niobium until the 8K planets. That's gotta be rough. But thanks again for sending in the map. And next up, before we go from this map, I just had to point out there's actually a little bit of fossil in here, Preet. Some of it escaped. It actually hides in the areas above the oil biome. Now with this new mineral overlay, you can actually find the fossil. The fossil actually shows up as red. But I'm not going to hold that against you. I think I left more in my biome than you did. Anyway, thanks again for the map. And now for something completely different. This map here was sent to me by Tim, and this map here is very, very interesting in many ways. It's completely different. I'm just going to start with that, and we'll get into it here. Now, this is just the actual core base. You've got your beds and all that. They've got these little weird lips here, but this, yeah, was it these? Yeah, it's up a few tiles, but everything is modular. This whole base just has a very modular feel to it. So all the rooms are modular, the base is modular, everything about it is modular. But let's just start with this little farming section over here. As you notice, you've got these little modular farming sections. So these are all bristle blossoms. So all three of these are bristle blossom farms, and they're all serviced by one of these auto sweepers. And those auto sweepers feed into the conveyor loaders, and those conveyor loaders feed back over here to the actual food preparation area. And you've also got your pinch of pepper nuts. Now you'll notice that, well, pinch of pepper nuts, they require a much higher temperature to be comfortable, 35 to 85, and bristle blossoms, complete opposite, 5 degrees to 30 degrees. So how is the temperature being kept this stable? Well, let's have a quick look at the plumbing overlay. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks so much. You have no idea. It took me like 2 cups of tea to get through this. Ugh. Um, so all three of these are temperature regulated. You'll notice the pipes are actually flowing around. And then each one of them, we'll just say grab the pepper nuts here. They have a little liquid pipe thermosensor. If the temperature in here goes above 70 degrees, it activates this overflow, and this basically dumps some of the liquid out. But that means more liquid can get in off this side. And the liquid off this side is all chilled liquid. You'll notice here it's all 18, 21 degrees, that kind of stuff. Some of it's even colder. So basically what you have here is, if the temperature in here goes too high, some of the liquid is siphoned out and fresh cooler liquid is injected into the system. It just means it remains thermally stable at all times. You might be injecting something that's way colder than the liquid that was in there, but that will actually just smear the heat out across the whole area and it will be just fine. And all that excess liquid that gets drained out, that all gets sent up here and sent back through this little system here. Now what happens with this little system is it comes in here, dumps into this tank here, and then it goes across and gets sent through the cooling area, this sort of cooling loop. And it just keeps going through here until it's cold enough, at which point it gets dumped back into the system and back into these storage tanks. You'll notice all these storage tanks are 15, 14. Some of them are minus 7 degrees, depending on what area they're meant to be cooling. And a bunch of automation. There is so much automation on this map, so much. You see each one of these storage, or each one of these little farming modules, they all have to have their own little setup of automation, and there's automation everywhere. And that's just for these 5 sections here. This whole cooling section, or all these designated tanks, each one of those is designated to an individual module. So that's, whoa, okay, just to look at it flowing. That's what it looks like constantly. In this map, I have a strange feeling that, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm thinking you're one of those people who likes to restart because it's not perfect, and you keep restarting and restarting and restarting, always perfecting it just that little bit more every time. That's my theory anyway. Me, I'd probably, well, do a half-assed job of this one and then probably move on because I'd be like, it's good enough and I'd be happy with it. No, this is just, yeah, sheerly optimized down to absolutely insane levels of perfection. Now, as for that food, actually, though, it goes over here, and currently the 2 main things that are only designated to be cooked are barbecue in one and stuffed berry in the other. However, there's so much leftover mushrooms down here that they're still living off all the fried mushroom from, I presume, as mushroom farmers have demolished a while back. These things are actually automated as well. Of course, everything is automated here. There's so much automation. These 2 fridges, if they're full, they'll turn off the grill so that no more food will be cooked. There's basically two fridges full of food ready to go at any particular moment. Excess food is stored down here in CO2, so I presume this stuff is just going to get well eaten, and once it's all gone, we'll move on to the next crops, which are these newer ones over here. Now, over here, where is it? Yes, we have a very, very similar system, but this is the power brick. So you've actually got a coal one, natural gas one, and a petroleum one, all of them spread across here. And all of them, they also have their own temperature regulation. So here's your actual temperature regulation area. This is where they all get, like, this provides the cooling for this ice box, and this here is sort of the radiator. So whenever there's a blob of liquid that was a little bit too warm, so that's been dumped through here to get some chilling. Yeah, so basically this system here, that sensor detects if any of the liquid passing through is not quite cold enough, at which point it gets siphoned out, dumped through here to get chilled, and dumped back into this liquid tank. And the liquid tank is basically just sitting there with chilled liquid sitting inside of it. Sort of a simple way to keep the liquids rotating and only dump in excess liquid when it's needed, or dump in additional cooling when it's needed. That just goes through the whole, it sort of does a zigzag back and forth all the way through all the power areas and the battery brick as well. And it's all so modular and just neat. Yeah, I hate you, Tim. That's just, I could never do that. I would probably just make one big giant box and dump everything in it. I wouldn't have the patience for this. This is just, damn. Oh yeah. Now we get down to metal refinement. Okay, this one also fried my noodle for a while. There was another noodle frying going on. Anyway, what happens here is this is also hooked up to an enormous amount of automation as well. I switched it on there a short while ago because, well, I want to actually see how it worked. Let's put it up to 3000. Actually, wait, no. Say we'll put you down to 5 and we'll put you up to 6. Just to turn the system on. Yeah. Now, what happens here is this stuff is all put through one steam turbine, but it doesn't matter how many's going or not going, they all get dumped through this section here, and it'll all get flow controlled. Oh, that's not hot enough yet. Yeah, I'll cut back in once this is hot enough. Okay, so this is the exiting coolant. So long as it's above 300 degrees, as set by this sensor right here, the coolant, or, well, heat absorption medium, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. You can't really call that stuff coolant, to be honest, when it goes through those things. But it gets limited here at this valve, and it gets limited to 2 kilos per second, which took me that took me a little time to figure out why. So anytime this thing spits out oil, it gets sent over into this storage tank. That storage tank then meters it out 2 kilos at a time. This entire area, by the way, in here is in vacuum. Yeah, just so you know. Anyway, then that gets sent up here and sent through the steam turbine area. Now the reason it's metered into 2 kilos is because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's actually 5 of these metal refineries set up. So if all 5 of them are active at the same time, all of them can dump 2 kilos of liquid onto this exit line up here that will go up and get dumped into the steam turbine up here. At which point it gets its cooling done and then gets dumped back down in here and then gets metered out between all the different refineries. And then dumped back in to provide more cooling. And the whole thing is automated up the wazoo. Just so that it stops when there's enough of each material and everything. Yeah, actually, I haven't even been able to trace all the automation to figure out precisely how it works. I just know that it works, and it keeps a specific amount of each metal on hand. If you use any of them, it'll top itself back up again nice and automatically. Very nice little design. I like that. Personally, I'm more of a brute force type of person, but yeah, that's quite nicely done. Now, next up, we'll have a quick look here over at the gold volcano. This is, well, basically just some cooling up here provided for the steam turbine, but the rest of the cooling is all provided by either the aqua tuner or, well, steam turbine heat deletion device. All that happens is gold hits here, dumps its heat into this, that gets dumped into the steam turbine. Gold eventually ends up down here. It's just a couple of clock sensors, so these open and drop the gold down. And once it eventually ends up in here, you've got, well, this is 20-degree liquid, and I'm pretty sure that's also on a clock sensor down here. Yep. Which means that doesn't activate until the time hits, well, a certain time of day. It just ensures that it stays in there for a full cycle type of thing. Then when it does, it gets shipped off across the line. Actually, all of that is dumped up here and dropped off at this point here. We were already sitting on almost 50 tons of gold that have been extracted, at least extracted from that volcano. There's a second one of those gold volcanoes around here somewhere. Wait, no, not a gold volcano. There's a second volcano around here somewhere, if I could just remember. And never mind, it's gone. Um, let's actually have a look at these suckers over here. There's Okay, so this is the actual ranching area. Oh, that's the fertilizer maker over there, which, believe it or not, also is not actually on its own specific cooling loop. It just actually is cooled by the polluted water that's coming in there that radiates back and forth. But all of these ranches, they're all on their own cooling loops, all hooked back up to this, and there's the cooling radiator all powered by Wheezeworts that feeds back into the tanks. Basically the exact same system as the other farm system, but for ranches. And damn, I am. So if you look down here, this is the ranch for the stone hatches. I thought this was amazing. That the stone hatches can actually hop up and down all of these things. Actually, let's check the pathing. Stand still for a second. I want to see what your pathing is. Yeah, their navigation options are pretty limited. It's basically up and down these sections. I don't know if there's any particular reason for it, but it is pretty cool looking. Now, these are all kept quite low. There's only about 4 in each one of these, even though they can handle more. I presume there's specific reasons for that. Yeah, then you've got, of course, your shearing area over here, and they're all kept in hydrogen. They're just going to stay in there until, well, yeah, they starve. But that doesn't affect their scale growth. Their scale growth will always remain constant as far as I'm aware, so it's plus 33%. Wait, no, 13%? Hmm, yeah, should be 33% or something along those lines. Scale growth, 33% per cycle. Yeah, so long as they're in hydrogen, their scales will keep growing anyway. They're not affected by being overcrowded, glum, hungry, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you've got your breeder ones over here. So there's your glossy Drecos and all the mealwood plants to keep them fed. Same with regular Drecos over there for harvesting of, well, they're also sheared over there. And then you've got your actual incubation area, which there's 4 incubators set up, but only 3 are in use. One for glossies, one for stone, and one for regular Drecos. However, all of these are actually hooked up to a clock sensor. There's actually a little automation timer built in here. Also, there's an awful lot of other automation built in. But let's see. If you look at this stone hatch egg here, it's incubating. Where is it? Oh, not actually using that. There's a little trick you can do where you can, if you turn on, say, an incubator for 10% of the day and it gets hugged, then once it's hugged, that hug lasts even if you turn off the incubator afterwards. Nice way to save power. But I'm not going through all the automation. There's too much. It's basically a reset sensor, everything, pressure sensors. I presume this is all just linked back to how many Drecos you want or how many hatches you want at any particular time. But yeah, that is just a beautiful little. Ah, let's just bring up the plumbing overlay again and have a look at this. It's all just loops everywhere. More loops, more loops. So refinement, power brick, food, ranching. Oh, electrolyzer setup. Even the electrolyzer setup looks like it's sort of a modular, squishy little build. Like just look at that. And all with an anti-entropy nullifier beneath it just to make sure there's plenty of chilling for all the oxygen. The oxygen's coming out at what, like 13 degrees? It's like it's been perfectly measured so that it can support the exact amount of duplicants at the right temperature. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Actually, let's have a quick look at the gas overlay. I haven't gone too deep into that one. Ah, very nice. Very minimalist almost. I was expecting it to be just sort of almost as crazy as the piping. The piping, on the other hand, someone loves their liquids. Someone loves their liquids an awful, awful lot. Now, quick look down here at water water creation. Well, this is all done via Wheezeworts as well. They're all plugged in here via the doors. That all plugs into the water, and the water set to, I think the other one set to go to 50. Yeah. If the temperature of the water in here is above 50, this basically keeps those doors engaged, and the Wheezeworts can keep providing their chilling. Except if it gets too cold, and then the doors open again, or too hot, I should say. Also, no worries about polluted oxygen in this one. The polluted oxygen has just been left there. You can actually I never did it myself. I was always very paranoid about having polluted oxygen around the place with slime lung in it. I mean, it's all riddled with slime lung. But yeah, there's basically a liquid lock here on the front door, and all the dupes are in exosuits from this point out. So it doesn't really matter if there's slime lung everywhere or even non-oxygen gases everywhere. It really makes no difference to once you've sealed up your base and you live entirely in exosuits. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, and one minor little thing here. Just a low-level solar panel. I think this isn't even a breeding place for them, or is it? Maybe I don't see a grooming station. But as far as I can tell, not that many critters here, and it's just producing about an extra 30 or 40 watts. Hey, it's free energy. Why not? This base, as far as I can see, is it's aiming for a combination of modularity, aesthetics, and efficiency all combined into one, and it really does feel like that's been achieved. Just the way everything's been modularized into its little chunks, everything's been just optimized so insanely efficiently. Just the temperatures, it's beautiful. That's all I can say. It's a beautiful base. I really do like all the effort that's gone into making this. Now, I'm even going to forgive, was it? Yeah, there was a little bit of fossil left behind. Where is that? Yep. Actually, quite a bit of fossil. All that red stuff is fossil down there. Come on, Tim. You can't believe in that fossil lying around. That fossil is just begging to be turned into steel. Though I'm pretty sure you've got enough steel to do your job. Oh, what was that one last thing? Yeah, there was just one last nice little touch. The anti-engine nullifier, that plastic ladder there, that was actually built in by default, and I'm surprised you didn't actually knock out those last two tiles just to finish off that plastic ladder there, just for symmetry's purposes. Just just saying. But one last thing to have a look at, of course, let's check out the power grid on this and power overlay. Actually, yeah, that's you would with a horizontal power spine instead of a vertical. Well, you could have a vertical one going on as well, but it's mainly horizontal. Okay, no, I don't feel so bad anymore. That's actually yeah, that's just messy enough that I'm happy with it. Very well done, sir. Very well done. Anyway, big thanks to Tim for that map. There's some very interesting ideas in there. I don't think I can steal half of these though. I couldn't. I don't think I'd have the patience to make these. These are just. Mm, these little modules are so perfectly tasty and crunchy and delicious, but I wouldn't have the patience to do it. Respect, much respect. Anyway, big thanks to Tim for sending me in this map. It is, damn, you find some really intriguing builds out there that people put together. I'm going to put both the saves will be attached. If you want to have a browse around yourself and maybe steal some ideas, or just revel in some of the designs that people come up with. So big thanks again to Tim and Preet for their maps. Uh, Links in the description. Hope you enjoyed and good luck.